The Gargoyle King.
Wonderful, wonderful work.
Betty meets the Gargoyle King while Archie and Jughead are on the run, so let's break down Season 3, Episode 7 of Riverdale and find out just what happened. Rise and shine on, you lovely people. Lisa here, and we are just one episode away from the mid-season finale of Riverdale, which means it's pretty much holiday break, and after that we're gonna have to go months or a few weeks or whatever it is without Riverdale, so soak it all in for these few weeks that it's still on, guys. So this week's episode is titled The Man in Black, which, of course, it takes on the same kind of format as the Season 2 Halloween episode, where it's broken up into 3 different short stories, instead of having our storylines kind of interwoven throughout the entire episode like normal. Now, as the name suggests, the Man in Black appears in all 3 stories, and yes, every sign is pointing to the fact that the Man in Black is Hiram Lodge. But does this mean that he is the Man in Black that Joaquin happens to be referring to? A lot of people seem to wear black on the show. And is the Man in Black the actual same thing as the Gargoyle King, or could he just be the Gargoyle King's right-hand man? Right now, after everything we know and everything in this episode, I feel like things are still trying to heavily point towards Hiram being some kind of Gargoyle King or very much involved with him. But I think this also could just be another one of those Riverdale twists to throw us off. They don't want us to find out who it is just yet, or maybe they don't even know. And maybe Hiram is just the pawn himself. But let's go ahead and break down this episode and see what happened. Our first adventure finds us hanging out with George and Lenny, Jughead and Archie, as they continue on foot to head out of Riverdale. Now, I just want to give Jughead a big shout out for pointing out what I think we've kind of known all along. Betty's pretty badass, and well, Archie, while he has the muscles, he's kind of a wuss.
No offense, but Betty took down a serial killer last year. You can't go for 5 minutes without being kidnapped or getting the crap kicked out of you. That was before you were marked for death by Hiram Lodge.
Yeah, Archie is very much always the damsel in distress on this show. Anyway, Jughead still can't get a hold of Betty, but it doesn't seem to alarm him enough to turn around and run home. If only he knew, right? So they continue on, and Archie sees the farm, wants to stop for food and maybe even the night, but Jughead kinda has a bad feeling about this place and tries to get Archie to keep moving. Unfortunately for Jughead, Archie wins the battle, and the two end up on the farm of Lori and Gracie Lake, where they are greeted by gunpoint. Quite a warm welcome, right? And well, just like the show Godless over on Netflix, this town is basically made up of all women, because all the men have left to go upriver and work on a job. Now, against Jughead's wishes, he and Archie stay the night in the barn in exchange for moving some hay bales and, physical labor the next day. Now, while shirtless Archie takes on that task and just feels right at home being the all-American country farm boy, Jughead goes into town to take some pictures and ends up finding the town pretty deserted, and the buildings are plastered with very familiar symbols. Those symbols we saw on Archie, on Hiram's folder on the computer, and of course on Dylan and Ben's back. They're all over these buildings and they seem pretty fresh. Jughead finds a kind of creepy old lady sitting at the gas station, and she tells him that the town wasn't always like this, but then Jingle Jangle took over and now Fizzle Rocks have taken over, and the symbols, they didn't start showing up until those Fizzle Rocks did. Now, when Jughead finds a painting of the Gargoyle King and stops to take a picture of that, he turns around and in the bed of the truck behind him are a bunch of girls playing Griffins and Gargoyles and eating Fizzle Rocks, and they inform Jughead that all the men in town left to go build a prison, which is also used in making Fizzle Rocks. They also mention that everyone works for the Man in Black, and that Athens is now his town. Yeah, so that suspicion meter for Hiram just keeps growing, right? Because Fizzle Rocks, Man in Black, they go hand in hand with Hiram, because if you remember the flashback episode when we went back to when the kids were in the parents were in high school, part of the Midnight Club, it is Hiram who introduced everyone to Fizzle Rocks and tried to make them take it, and Alice was the only one who didn't take it. So she wasn't hallucinating while everybody else was running around all kinds of crazy, right? And also, Hiram really loves building his prison. So now Jughead really's got a bad feeling about this entire place and runs back to the farm. Meanwhile, on the farm, Archie is getting a shave from Lori, and man, this boy is just too trusting. Like, he's letting this girl he just met, who kind of has a creepy vibe, who greeted him with a gun, let her take a razor blade so close to his throat. Yeah, just one false move and she could just nix him out of here. But there's something about this farm for Archie that makes him feel right at home, and it's a pretty girl, so he is way too trusting. They then end up sharing a kiss, but then Archie pulls away because he starts to think about Veronica and how he's, still in love with her even though they're not together. And he then starts to come clean to Lori about who he is and why they're there and why they're running. And it's just like, shut up, Archie. You are way too trusting. Like, this is the kind of stuff that has gotten you into trouble this entire show. So just keep your mouth shut, man. Lori then is like, let me make you some more eggs. And then she clobbers him upside the head with a frying pan or like a skillet, just like an evil Rapunzel.
Oh, Mama, I have got to get me one of these.
She then ties him up and makes a phone call. Jughead arrives back at the farm just in time to see Hiram Lodge emerge from a car. Yes, he's wearing black. He talks to Lori and Gracie because they've made a deal. They're giving Hiram Archie in return for their father and brother coming home with their debt fully paid off. But Jughead manages to get to Archie in time and free him and says they gotta book it out of there right now. But Archie, he actually wants to stay behind. He wants to stay there and like kill Hiram, take him down, because he knows that otherwise Hiram will never stop chasing him. Now Jughead, he pleads and nothing seems to be getting through Archie's thick skull until Jughead asks if Archie thinks Veronica will ever forgive him if he kills her father. And that is the thing that gets him to change his mind, and the two manage to flee out of the barn just in time. And yeah, let's just say that Hiram is pissed, and these two are off to see none other than Jughead's mom and sister. So that is how we are getting the setup for Gladys and Jellyby Jones to come into the show. Next up, we have, at least in my opinion, the least interesting story of the three in this. I haven't been a fan of what they've been doing with Veronica lately, but if you're a fan of Camila Mendes and Charles Melton in real life, and you like that they're together, as a couple in real life, then you probably might like this segment because you get to see Reggie and Veronica spend a lot of time together. Now, Veronica is done with her parents and decides to finally pack up and leave the Pembroke. Like, what took her so long? Like, so many people had to get hurt and die for her to decide to move out of her house. Yeah, I know she's a kid, but like, why not just go stay with Betty or something? Or you have money, you could get your own place. She finally decides to leave, but she doesn't leave before accusing Hermione of having Sheriff Moneta conveniently disappear, aka killed, when all the evidence and stuff came out against him. Veronica then heads to her speakeasy, where she and Reggie realize that they're basically not making any money at the speakeasy, so they're going to have to do something to obviously gain a profit. So Veronica decides to turn the speakeasy into a casino for one night only. Who does she call? She calls on her shady pal Elio for some advice and help, and he agrees to bring in his friends and clients and the games and all of that and everything for 25% of the take. Veronica also reveals she took out a second mortgage on Pops to pay for this whole shindig. In Riverdale, secrets cannot be kept from Hiram because he shows up at Pops and he does what Hiram does best. Magically appears, tells Veronica he heard about what she's doing, and offers to kind of like help or else reprimands her for it. He says he heard about casino night and is basically kind of mad that she went to a competitor instead of asking him for help. And then he does the whole, we're family, we'll welcome you back, all the blah 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 to try to convince her to come back home and kind of get her back in his clutches. But Veronica, she's not falling for it. But I don't get why this girl did not bother to grill Hiram about who he heard about this casino night from. I would have been like, please, tell me how you heard about this exactly. Of course, Hiram would lie, but you could figure it out, and maybe he would tell the truth. But I'd be like, if you don't give me a specific person's name and I can't follow up with them, I would be like, he must have this place bugged. That picture of her that he gave her, like, I'd be scrubbing this place clean. That's the first thing I would do. Security cameras and checking for bugs. When casino night comes around, it seems like it's hopping and almost as wild as Reggie's pants, but there's one problem. Elio is on a winning streak at the blackjack table, and he could end up winning so much money and basically wiping Veronica out so no profit is made and he doesn't have to split any money with Veronica, and he wins. So yeah, he had shady intentions all along, and Veronica decides to beat him at his own game. She goes and bets the deed to Pops in a one all-in hand. Winner takes all. What do you know? Veronica actually wins, but was it luck or something more? Well, Veronica is a lodge, so you can bet it was something more. Yeah, this was not an honest hand of blackjack. She can play dirty too. She informs Reggie as they look at the piles of cash that they've just made that a couple hours before casino night started, Hiram summoned her to his office and she actually went, and he informed her of what Elio was up to and told her how to beat him at his own game and basically told her what dealer to use. So that's how she was able to cheat and beat Elio at his own game. So the next morning, Pops kind of does throw shade at Veronica, reprimands her in his nice, lovable Pops way about kind of turning family-friendly Pops into this place of crime, even though Veronica says they just had to make their money back. But he says, don't be like your father. And Veronica says that deep down, she thinks Hiram is not so bad. Really, Veronica? Really? Did those words seriously just come out of your mouth? That man had your boyfriend framed for murder, put in jail, thrown into a fight club. He has tortured you, he's tortured your mother, he's tortured your friends. And the fact that he helps you win some money, all of a sudden that's the thing that makes you think deep down that your dad isn't such a bad guy. Like, what are you thinking? What is going on in her brain? Like, every time she takes just a half step forward, she ends up taking like 50 more back. That's why I'm not liking what they're doing with her this past season, 2 seasons, season and a half. I don't know. I missed kind of the Veronica from season 1. Well, Pops decides to help her rethink what she just said about Hiram being good by telling her that Sheriff Monetta's body was found in the marsh, decapitated with his hands sawed off. So yeah, that's a pretty harsh way to die. Now, they don't know specifically if this is Sheriff Monetta's body at the moment, but I'm kind of leaning towards it is. And if not, no matter what, it seems like Hiram would be behind this murder, and that is a brutal way to kill somebody off. Yeah, I don't think her dad is good deep down. It'd have to be like deep down. And even then, it would be a sliver of goodness, not anything worth actually being good. Now, my other problem with this storyline and Veronica in general is that every time they start to have her be independent, show some strength, get away from her father, think for herself, they have her running back to Daddy's clutches. It is Hiram who tells her that Elio went after Veronica because he thought she was weak without the protection of Hiram. So Veronica's just like, oh, I'll show him. But Veronica just did what her dad told her to do, and it happened to work out. If Hiram hadn't said anything, Veronica literally would have been out of money, but it would have been a lesson for Veronica, something she probably needed to learn. Instead, even if Hiram gave her all this information and then she didn't do anything with it and figured out her own way, that would have been different. But instead, she did exactly what her father told her to do. And yes, she ended up with the money, but Hiram, I feel like he's just gonna be like, that part of that's because of me, give me some of that money. It's like, why is she so blind? I think she's smart, but she thinks she's doing these things on her own, and she's so proud of what she did. She's like telling Reggie, I did this, but she's also saying, Reggie, my dad told me all of this, and she doesn't really get that her dad still has, this power over her. So I don't know what they're trying to do. Whether they're trying to say she's independent or not, it's not really working for me. So right now, her and Archie are kind of tied for my least favorite characters this season, if not the past couple seasons. Now let's move on to our third story, which is Betty, who is still locked up inside Sisters of Quiet Mercy. And I love that in this section, Betty's kind of narrating and we get to hear her inner thoughts. Now, she is doing her best to try to act normal and pass her tests and play off everything that's happening so that no one will suspect her and she can go start investigating. And that means that she lies about what she sees in the ink blots and then ends up with her little Arthur's fists because, these things are bringing up some deep, bad memories for her. Now, after her session, she is given a dose of Fizzle Rocks, which the sisters keep calling just candy, and it's what good girls get. But Betty, she knows just what Fizzle Rocks is because she makes the connection to what Alice told her about back when the Midnight Club and Hiram. So she's like, I'm not taking this crap. She ends up throwing that in the trash can. So now she wants to know just what's in her medical file. So she begins to hatch her plan on how to grab what she needs and then escape. But a wrench is thrown into her plans, and that wrench's name is Ethel. Ethel ends up being assigned as her new roommate. And let's just say that Ethel's obsession with not only the Gargoyle King, but also Jughead has just reached new levels that it's just creepy, man. Ethel does inform Betty that she has met the Gargoyle King quite a few times, and Betty asks to be introduced, but Ethel says that Sister Woodhouse is the one who introduces the girls to the king, and it's usually to take them to the chamber when they misbehave. Now, Ethel also tries to get Betty to take her Fizzle Rocks that she threw out in the trash, but Betty, she's pretty good with words and manages to say the right thing to get Ethel to just let it go. Now, when the girls are outside cleaning and gardening, Betty sees Claudius Blossom drive up in the Blossom Maple truck, which is kind of shady since Betty knows that they do not get any syrup with their meals, so what on earth would he be doing there? Well, then a black car pulls up and Hiram Lodge, dressed in black, gets out, meets with Sister Woodhouse. She gives him some kind of envelope, and one of the girls say that they call Hiram the Man in Black. And he's an angel donor who helps the sisters with anything they need. And you can bet that he's probably the one who is supplying all those Fizzle Rocks. But what is the deal with Claudius and why is he there? Yep, you can bet that this gets those gears in Betty's head turning even faster. So Betty goes snooping and thinks she's found the Gargoyle King's chamber, which is pretty much confirmed when she hears a girl screaming bloody murder from inside. She then runs and hides and sees Sister Woodhouse carrying a girl from the chamber. When Betty decides to go up to the door, she's caught by none other than Ethel, and Betty of course tries to play dumb like she's lost, and seems like Ethel buys it, but also Ethel's kinda creepy, so I don't think she is. So Betty decides she's gotta figure out what's inside of her file, so she steals a paperclip and then tries to figure out how to get sent to the infirmary. When Ethel asks Betty to play G&G with them, Betty kind of figures out a way, and they start arguing over Jughead, and then things start to get really intense, and Betty fakes having a seizure and gets sent to the infirmary. There she finds her file and she reads it and says she's supposed to get 2 doses of something called Lapis, and that after the first week, per HL's orders, her dosage should increase. And of course, HL leads straight to the initials of Hiram Lodge. So Betty thinks that Lapis must be the code name for Fizzle Rocks, so Betty rips this page out of the file and tries to continue with her escape plan, which she thought was rock solid. Instead, they are blocked by a brick wall. Yeah, she tries to go out the same little tunnel and door in the basement that Cheryl was freed by, but they have put a brick wall up behind that door. So Betty ends up getting caught by Ethel and Sister Woodhouse. She is forced to take Fizzle Rocks, which put her in a very hazy state, and they take her to see the Gargoyle King. And of course, as Riverdale does, and as kind of expected, they're not going to show us that Gargoyle King just yet. So once she's in the chamber, they black it out, and then we go to the next scene. So we don't get to see exactly what Betty saw in the Gargoyle King's chamber. Gargoyle King is getting harder and harder for me to say. We then flash to Betty, still kind of in a hazy state, taking that ink blot test again, and this time she is saying exactly what she sees with those ink blots. The dead body they tried to hide that Chick killed, the black hood, and the Gargoyle King. And then all of a sudden, the Gargoyle King is standing behind the sister, and Betty repeats what Ethel actually said a little bit earlier down in the tunnel.
My king, my savior, guide me through the night, bless me with your darkness, gift me with your flight.
And thus ends the events of this episode. So essentially what we learned in this episode is kind of what we already knew. Hiram Lodge has his grimy hooks literally everywhere, even in neighboring towns like Athens. And he's moved on from Jingle Jangle to pushing these Fizzle Rocks. So now we know that Hiram was the one who introduced, everyone to those Fizzle Rocks back in the flashback episode. But where did he even get them from back then? Like, did he concoct them himself? Or did someone give them to him to peddle for them? Like, I'm not still fully convinced that Hiram is the Gargoyle King, or maybe even has anything to do with the Gargoyle King. Maybe it's a coincidence, and whoever he's working for, maybe he doesn't even know that person's the Gargoyle King. But then again, these symbols are everywhere, so he must know, right? Anyway, I'm leaning more towards that he's just one of the king's, right-hand men, or maybe even that he owes the Gargoyle King some kind of debt. Now, we have not seen Claudius in a long time, and I know many of you always leave comments how you think Clifford is still alive and that Claudius is Clifford and all of that, but what's the connection here? Like, why is he showing up at Sisters of Quiet Mercy? What is he delivering? Is he the Fizzle Rocks delivery man? So that's what they're hiding inside of the maple syrup trucks. But why does Hiram want everybody to take Fizzle Rocks and be in this state? Why? What does this benefit him? I don't know. But also, a thought, is Hermione part of any of this? Could she be? Is she as innocent as she's trying to play it as? All I know is that I keep getting more confused every episode of the show, so I hope some actual answers start dropping soon. But for now, I am just excited to see Gladys and Jellybean Jones show up in the next episode, so let's watch the promo.
Jughead?
Jellybean?
There was a mass seizure at school.
I will strap you to your beds and electroshock the sin out of you.
That's one of the infected.
I am shutting down Riverdale High.
We're going to war.
Hi, Mom.
What's coming next is practically biblical.
So, is the show now turning into, like, Outbreak or something? I just saw that the episode is actually called Outbreak, so I guess, in a sense, yes. But all I know is that I could not actually concentrate on this promo after seeing whatever the hell is going on with Penelope in this trailer. Like, I'm kind of disturbed. Like, is that syrup all over her? Why does she have this, like, insatiable come hither sexy sexual look? Like, is this what happens in her brothel? Are we gonna see that brothel? They haven't brought that back up in a while. I don't know, but just bring on Gladys and Jellybean, guys. Now, though, it is your turn to hit me up in the comments or on social media and let me know what you thought of this episode. What do you think is the connection between Hiram and the Gargoyle King? Are they one and the same? Does Hiram owe the Gargoyle King something? What's the deal with the Fizzle Rocks? Is it a partnership? What the hell is going on with that? What do those other symbols mean? We know the one means sacrifice, but what about those other two? And how the hell is Betty getting out of there? What are Gladys and Jellybean gonna help Jughead and Archie with? There's a lot of questions, but leave me your thoughts and theories, and what you like and what you don't like about this season so far down in the comments. After that, don't forget to hit the subscribe button because I'm talking about Riverdale all the time. And if you like other shows and interviews and all that, I got those for you right over here. I have an interview with Kat McNamara talking about her new role on Arrow. It just premiered this week, her episode, and then she'll be on quite a few more, so be sure to check that out. Other than that, I guess that's it for this Riverdale recap, and I will see you next week for another one.